Okay, so today we are looking at converting between fractions, decimals and percentages. Okay, quite a common skill, well, a very common skill at Gcse, but it's quite a common skill that people ask me for help. Okay, so you can see here that I've got a table. Okay, I've got a few numbers here, and we've got F for fractions, D for decimals, P for percentages. Okay, what I'm going to do, we have to imagine it's a big table, and we're going to fill it in as we go in. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to work these out, and then before you know it, the more of these you do, you just happen to memorize them, and certain things on here you know already, and then hopefully you'll learn a bit more as we go. So fractions, I've got a half. Okay, now a half as a decimal and then half as a percentage. Okay, now hopefully you know one of them already, but a little tip I'm going to give you, think money. Okay, think of money here. I've got £1. Okay, £1, and I'm going to share it between two people. Okay, look at the actual fraction itself. Okay, if I change that 1 for a dot, there's the line, then the 2 for a dot, I've got a divide symbol. Okay, so automatically now you can use fractions as divisions. So 1 divided by 2, or if I had £1 shared between two people, we have 50p each, which is 0.50. Okay, or you could have just 0.5. It's the same value. Okay, I haven't changed the value just by adding those extra digits on the end there past the decimal point. Okay, so it doesn't matter if you put 0.50 or 0.5, it doesn't matter. Think money though, £1 shared between two people is 50p. As a percentage, then that would be 50%. Okay, you see it on sales all the time, 50% off, which is just half of the price. So you calculate half, and then you can take it away, or just that number, that's how much the item will be. So then how about a quarter? Now, hopefully in your head now, when you're picturing a quarter, you're thinking of that pizza analogy that teachers have used since you started school. You have a pizza, chop it in half, and then the quarter is half of the half. Okay, so think money again. I've got £1 shared between four people. How much do they have each? Well, they have 25p each. And the way you can check that, add 25 together 4 times to see if it makes a pound. Okay, 25, 50, 75, £1. We know it's 4. 1 divided by 4, 0.25. As a percentage, 25%. You can see where I've got my numbers from. Okay, you can see this part is very, very easy. It's just this part is a little bit tricky. All we've done to get from these numbers, so these decimals to these percentages, all we've done is multiplied by 100. Okay, you can see where the digits would move 2 places to make 25%. Let's have a fifth then. Okay, think money again. I've got £1. I share between 5 people now. But if I'm sharing between 5, it must be less than 25p, because that was how much 4 people would get each. So £1 shared between 5 people. There is a single coin that you can have 5 of them to make a pound, which is a 20p piece. So then 0.2 or 0.20. Again, it doesn't matter. You'll always get the mark. To convert the decimal to the percentage, we times it by 100 to make 20%. Some of you might be thinking, oh, let's just use the 2 digits that are there as a percentage. You're right, but be careful. I'll come on to that a little bit later on. So that then, we've gone from fractions to decimals, then use the decimals to work out the percentages. How about then, if we've got the decimal and now we need to work out either side? Well, 0.7, think of the place value table this time. We've got hundreds, tens, units. What's that first decimal place there? Okay, it is tenths. Then we have hundredths. So there then we have 7 tenths. 7 tenths is written like that, 7/10. Remember what I said earlier? You could put a 0 on the end here without changing the value. So then to convert that to a percentage, you can see would be 70%. Same here. We could easily put a 0 on the end, hasn't changed the value of it, which makes 80%. Let's put this as a fraction. We have 8/10. If I did have a 0 on the end there, similar to what I've got here, we now have 80 hundredths. So if it was 1 decimal place, be out of 10, 2 decimal places out of 100. These are equivalent fractions. Okay, I could even simplify 8/10 to be 4/5. So if it's asking you to write this as a fraction, you could write any of these, but if it asks for simplest form, that's when you have to use your equivalent fraction as your bigger method to obviously simplify it as far as it can go. How about then if we had 0.28? Well, as a fraction then, that would be 28 out of, remember, 2 decimal places out of 100. As a percentage, nice and easy, 28%. 0.36, well, that's 36%, that part's easy. Over here now, 36 out of 100. Why is it out of 100? Because we have 2 places. However many places, that's how many zeros are around the bottom. Okay, little trick for you. Okay, we're coming to the end now. So now we've got percentages. Let's convert these to a decimal. Well, if it was multiplied by 100 to get a percentage, then working backwards then we must be dividing by 100. 12% must be 0.12. 72% must be 0.72. 5% must be 0. I've made the mistake. Why is it not 0.5? Because that is a half. Remember we did it earlier. 5%, 0.05. Okay, 5 divided by 100 is 0.05. Be careful, don't fall into the trap. Over here then, as fractions, well, I've got 0.12, so that must be 12 out of 100. Here we've got 72 out of 100. Here we've got 5 out of 100. Last 3 now. When we set up the pizza earlier, we have the pizza, we chop it in half, we have 2 halves. Chop that in half, we then get quarters. Okay, remember a quarter was 0.25. Now I've got an eighth. What's the relationship between a quarter and an eighth? Well, an eighth is half of a quarter. Okay, so an eighth must be 0. Well, a quarter was 0.25. Half of that, 0.125. So as a percentage, I know you're tempted to write 125%. You're following the pattern. However, 0.125 multiplied by 100, decimal point goes in between the 2 and the 5. A third. Again, think money. If you've got £1, share it between 3 people, you get 33 pence each. But there's that 1 penny left over because 3 33s are 99. Well, if you've got a penny left over, you still need to share that between 3 people, which makes 0.3. But then you get, again, that little bit left over, and you have to share it between 3 people to make another 3 on the end. So before you know it, this 3 goes on and on and on, which is recurring. So 1/3 is 0.3 recurring, because that 3 goes on and on forever. Times that by 100 to get 33.3 recurring. So if 1/3 is 0.3 recurring, let's have a guess now what we think 2/3 is going to be. Well, let's just double everything here. So then this would be 0.6 recurring, which makes this 66.6%. Obviously recurring, remember that little dot above the recurring digit there. So these are all quite common. These are the tricky ones at the end. What I'd advise you to do is to jot them down and then have a bit of a practice at a few of them. If your sheet does ask you for simplest form, have a look at the separate video of equivalent fractions. That will help you to simplify, as this video was specifically there to help us convert between these two. So think money with a divide. To get from a decimal to a percentage, we have to times by 100, and to get from a percentage to a decimal, we have to divide by 100. And with percentages, okay, we know this here is 25 out of 100. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with putting 25 over 100, but obviously be careful. Okay, percentage out of 100, be careful what it's asking for. Okay, believe it or not, this is exactly the same as 25 over 100, just by multiplying by 25. Okay, be careful of simplest form if it's asked for it. Okay, hope it helps. Practice makes perfect. Have a go.